Greetings, the internet. I am Eric Grooms, the film score fanatic, here again with a new Mando review. Today we're reviewing the Mandalorian Chapter 3, titled The Sin. This episode was directed by Deborah Chow, and I will say that it's a good sign for future Star Wars to come. If you're not aware, Deborah Chow has been named the I don't know if she's the showrunner or the creator or just the main director. I don't know what the status is technically, but she's basically supposed to be creating the Obi-Wan series that's going to come out next year, I think, something like that. It's been officially announced, but I don't recall if there was any official details on when it was going to start filming and things like that. But this seems like a really great indication that we're going to probably get a pretty good show, you know, if this is the person that is going to be behind the creation of that show, because this is a great episode. I didn't look at any reviews or listen to what people were saying, but I saw a lot of headlines today that were saying that this was the best episode yet. It may be. I feel like it probably was. I will say, from my opinion, I will say for a fact that I believe it was the best plot development and character development that we've gotten so far. The first two episodes were great stepping stones, great foundation set on building this character, but I feel like this episode, and I almost said movie just now because it really felt cinematic. This episode seemed to do the most exciting development so far in this storyline. So I'm gonna, there's gonna be spoilers. I'm gonna talk about the episode. If you haven't seen the episode, you probably shouldn't watch this unless you don't mind spoilers. Some people don't care. One of my best friends at work does not care about spoilers in general. So, stick around if you don't care about spoilers. But I'm probably going to be talking about spoilers because at this point, it's all going to be spoilers. We can't really talk about any of the details without spoiling something. So if you're in here now, I'm guessing that you're in here for the long haul. You're watching the show. So let's just talk about it. So first thing I noticed right off the bat with the first moment in the show is that they are ramping up the cuteness level. Obviously, little baby Yoda, as for lack of a better term, he's quite cute. Well, I say he, could be a she. And I think the people who are working on this show knew that when they were making it, because obviously they couldn't have made changes to this episode since the last week when we saw the first two episodes. So they knew what they were doing ahead of time. But quite cute. A little too cute to handle sometimes. But once we get to the location that we spend this entire episode at, walking through town, I noticed, I noted about the character of the Mandalorian. Either he is very confident as a character, and I think in general we've seen that he is a confident personality, whether it's warranted or not in each situation. He at least puts on an air of confidence, or he's very reckless. And we've also seen indications in the first 2 episodes prior to this that, maybe he doesn't always think everything through. And I say that because he's walking through town with the little egg floating next to him, wide open, showing that he's coming in with the asset. Now, to be fair, most of the people there probably have no idea who he's got in tow with him. But at the same time, like, he's already had to fight off multiple opponents to keep ownership of this target. So you'd think smart thing would be to hide it, or be discreet about bringing it to town. So that says something about the character. As I said, I think we've already established some of those traits, so it's just reinforcing that. But I'm wondering, because we've already gotten a bunch of little moments that reinforce some of the things that we've always known or suspected about Star Wars. And there's much speculation, like, are we going to find out about this species of creature that Yoda was, and that this little baby is? But I'm starting to wonder if we're going to have all of our Star Wars questions answered, all of the burning questions that we've always had, because we get a big one in this episode. I would say many Star Wars scholars have always wondered, why was that man in Cloud City running with an ice cream maker under his arm? Well, now we know that it wasn't an ice cream maker. It was a Star Wars safety deposit box or something like that. He probably had a bunch of valuables in it. So now it all makes sense. But that's another great little callback detail for the really deep fans that remember that and know about that. And for anybody else, for a casual fan, it's just like, oh, that's a cool looking storage device or whatever. So they continue to please the real diehard fans, so that was fun. In this scene, we see that the client is, you can suspect, based on who he is and who he's involved with, that he's probably not the greatest dude. But you get a real heavy sense that he is indeed not a good dude. When he talks about what did he say? The Mandalorians. Now I can't remember what he's even said. But he was clearly threatening the Mandalorian by basically saying, like, Beskar is harder to find. Or no, he said it was almost as hard to find as the Mandalorians themselves.
Unfortunately, finding a Mandalorian in these trying times is more difficult than finding the steel.
So to me, he was saying, like, I've got my hands on all this Beskar, but I'd actually rather like to find the Mandalorians, because he's an Imperial, and we know that they had the Great Purge, which the Mandalorians keep talking about. I don't think he likes Mandalorians. I think that the client likes to use this Mandalorian to his benefit. It's worthwhile to him to lose some Beskar in order to get this asset. So not a good dude, and I think there's some danger that he and his ilk might really be threatening the survival of the Mandalorians before the end of this season. That's probably when we're going to see Giancarlo Esposito show up with his Death Troopers. I'm sure that their main focus, whenever they come into play, is going to be going after the Mandalorians as a group. Speaking of the Mandalorians, we get a little more look, a little deeper look at kind of what their culture is about, or at least how they are wanting to present it in this, depleted state that they're in. Very warrior class. No respect for, I shouldn't say no respect, but very little respect for somebody until they prove themselves to the clan or whatever the case may be. As we see the titular Mandalorian being accosted by some others. And speaking of that character, I saw in the credits that it was the name, what did it say? Paz Vizsla, P-A-Z, and Vizsla, which for the Star Wars nerds, we know Vizsla. For those of you that don't, Vizsla is a line of Mandalorian. It's a Mandalorian family that goes back a long way. And we met pre-Vizsla in the Clone Wars series, a character that was voiced by Jon Favreau. So that was Dave Filoni's show. He did the Clone Wars, and he had Jon Favreau doing the voice of Pre-Vizsla, who was the leader of a prominent Mandalorian family, and went all the way up to become the leader of the Mandalorians for a while. And so apparently this character must be called Paz Vizsla. As I said, I saw in the credits for it was the body double, I guess. So they had a big stunt dude doing the body, and I had to look up an interview with that guy to make sure that it wasn't his voice, because it sounded slightly like it could be somebody else possibly. And now I can't think of what the word is that he said, but there was a word that he said that I was like, that sounds like the way he would say that word.
Our strength.
So anyway, I believe Jon Favreau is doing the voice of this character as well. The Mando heavy trooper dude, who is a descendant of Vizsla. So he's just slightly changing his voice a little bit to be a descendant of a character that he's already played before, or at least voiced before. So anyway, I digress. That was a very long story on the side there. But they get into a little scuffle. We see some vibro blades in action. That was kind of cool. You can actually see the blades like flickering because the big guy tries to take his helmet off, which is a big no-no in Mando culture. So there was some more culture detail that we were catching there. But he didn't succeed, and the forger is that the right word? The lady who works the forge, does the forging. She kind of brought everyone back to their senses and reminded everybody that hey, there's not many of us. We probably should stick together because this is the way. And they all sounded very cultish, but I think that's really just more of a they understand their situation requires that they can't be fighting with each other. They have to help each other survive and thrive. So, but as soon as they said that, or as soon as she said that, and they all repeated it, You could tell that was going to be something that comes in handy at some point. Or maybe not handy is the right word, but it'll come back into play at some point. Farther on in the episode, well, not even farther on in that same scene, in the next part of that scene, I guess, the forger starts making more armor for the Mandalorian. And we saw in the first episode that when she, man, I'm scattered right now. When she started doing the work on his armor to make his pauldron in the first episode, that's when he started. I guess he's like kind of meditating there and thinking about his life. And we start seeing the flashbacks of what happened to him as a maybe before he was a foundling. I'm wondering if those are like his actual parents in those flashbacks. And in this episode, it was the same thing. She starts working the metal, and he starts to go back in his memories, and we start to see a little more detail. Clearly, Clone Wars era, some attack from the Separatists, and we got super battle droids mowing people down, and one of the droid gunships flying over and wreaking havoc. But there's clearly an intent here from the creators. Whether I'm digging too deep, but obviously he keeps having we keep showing these flashbacks whenever he's sitting in the center of his identity at the moment, which is this the most Mandalorian spot that you can be, thinking back on his foundling history, and thinking back to what looks like when he was most vulnerable, while he's getting armor made to make him less vulnerable. So, do with that what you will. I don't think I'm being too terribly deep or anything like that. Clearly, there's a message here that as they're making him less vulnerable with this better armor, he's thinking about his vulnerability, his current and past vulnerabilities. So, interesting tidbit there. When he goes and visits Grief at the cantina, we start to get a little more detail about the political climate that they're living in at this time in galactic history. We know that this takes place roughly 5 years after the Return of the Jedi, after those events. And we get an indication from Grief Karga that the Republic exists. It is out there, but we are so far on the outskirts that they don't really have the same control that the Empire probably did at one point. So the fact that there are Imperials operating in these far reaches, while not legal, everyone kind of just turns a blind eye because they gotta live their day-to-day lives. So, Grief Karga says you can go to the core systems and tell the Republic that there's Imperials out here, but I'm not gonna tell them because they're paying us. They're the ones who are here. So. So just more of an indication, a little more world building of what the actual situation is out there where they are. A little bit more Wild West. So that's even more indication that this is a Western feeling show. Speaking of that, I always think of the music when we're talking about the Western theme. still, I like the main theme, the Mandalorian theme, the music that plays during the credits, the orchestral stuff that, you know, is more of a Western type theme. It still feels a little schizophrenic to me. Some of the musical moments. One in particular, and this kind of takes me into probably one of my last points about the episode. When and this is a big spoiler, you're with me now, so you should be in for the spoilers. When the Mandalorians come out of hiding and they save the day, the music, clearly there was the intent for it to be like a swell of music, and this could be the mix on the episode. You know, it may not be the composer's direct work. Maybe the sound got mixed a little poorly, and the music just didn't have as much impact. It didn't have as much control over the scene. And music in film is a huge component in how you emotionally accept a moment in a story. And it was okay, but I felt like it could have had more of an impact in that moment. So that musically, that moment felt a little flat. I will say, story-wise, the music didn't detract too much for me personally. I did get a little bit of the nerd chills with that moment, because it's just cool. Like, you know, for those of us that have been with Star Wars for a long time, you know, we saw Boba Fett in the original trilogy, and he used his rocket pack. Well, actually, I don't know if he ever actually used it. It got turned on for him in error, which led to his demise. But we saw him fly with his jetpack at one point, and then in the prequels we saw Jango Fett doing the same thing, and in the Clone Wars series we saw a lot of it, and in Star Wars Rebels, the other anime series done by Dave Filoni, we saw a lot of Mandalorians with their jetpacks, which is great, and it's an animation. But now we finally get to see some Mandalorians in action, in live action, which is one of the big reasons that we wanted to have live action Star Wars television. Give us more of the goodies that we like to see, but let's see it in you know, as close to an analog of real life as we can get. So, pretty awesome moment, and especially with the heavy Mando arriving, and you know, proving that he is indeed in it for the team. The "this is the way" motto comes back to the visit, and we get a salute, which I kind of felt like maybe they could have done something a little more Star Warsy, for lack of a better term, just in the sense that, like, it was truly like a salute, like a human would do here. I felt like they could have come up with something, you know, I don't know, like hitting his chest or something, but in that final moment in the air as he's flying, as Mando's flying away, and the heavy comes flying up next to him, I thought it was kind of funny that it kind of had an Iron Man vibe to it, considering Jon Favreau is the writer and creator of this show. So I guess you can't really avoid that when they both, you know, use rockets, boosters, and fly around in the sky and whatnot, and have armor with very distinct helmets. But anyway, One more note I wanted to make about, more about this character development that I was noticing in the episode. When Grief Karga confronts the Mandalorian in his ship, and the Mandalorian, has some quick thinking and excellent aim with his little cable shooter to hit the perfect spot to create the haze that Grief couldn't couldn't shoot him because he couldn't see him. But the Mandalorian I believe he had noted that when Grief showed him his best scar earlier in the episode and put it right back in the same pocket, Mandalorian noticed where he had put it. And I do believe that he shot him right where it was, knowing that it would knock him back, but it wouldn't kill him. That's just another indication of the honor that I think this character has, which, we obviously saw some honor when he, infiltrated the client's base of operations to save little baby Yoda, who is also a foundling. So I think there's some connection there. They've bonded at this point, and the Mandalorian is not going to let that go. Obviously, I believe the title of the episode, "The Sin," is referring to the sin of him handing him over, and he made up for that sin by getting him out of that place. And then he holds no ill will towards Grief Karga, because he knows that he did break the code. He has a personal code that he has to keep with little baby Yoda, but he knows that he broke the code that he is supposed to follow as a bounty hunter. So he has, like I said, he has no ill will towards Grief Karga. He doesn't want to kill his friend, so he shoots him right where he knows it won't kill him. But yeah, I think that's the main crux of the episode. It was a great one. The special effects look top notch. They're not pulling a fast one on us. The quality is great.
Can spare no expense.
And as I said, Deborah Chow directed this episode. She's going to be working on the Obi-Wan show, so that's exciting. This was an episode that had a lot of great action and a lot of great character and plot. So I'm excited for what we'll see with Obi-Wan in the future. But real quick, I wanted to make another allusion. I wanted to remind everybody of my speculation from the last episode that I think still applies, and I wonder if it will keep going with each new episode. We get a little more detail, maybe, but I do believe that they wanted little baby Yoda to extract some stuff, maybe do some tests and whatnot, and I think we will end up seeing some ties between this, The Mandalorian, and The Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9, when it comes out in less than a month now. The Sith Troopers, the red stormtroopers that we've seen in the posters and toy lines and whatnot for The Rise of Skywalker, I've heard rumblings that they're going to be force sensitive, and this was long before The Mandalorian came out. But now I'm putting these pieces together. We've got this weird scientist working for old school Imperials, and they're way out in the outskirts. I'm thinking the Emperor's out there somewhere, and he's directing his loyalists for the next task, and I think the next task is this experimentation. Whether the emperor that's out there is a clone, or if he's just badly injured, we'll find out how he escaped his ultimate demise here in coming up in December in The Rise of Skywalker. But you know, I don't want to get too deep into speculation for that movie. But I'm getting the sensation that this is going to connect somehow. Speaking of that, isn't Star Wars and Lucasfilm and, well, Disney obviously, but isn't Star Wars having a moment right now? Like, and there's no mistake about that, obviously. We've got what they are advertising as the final film in the saga coming out in December, in a month or so. And The Mandalorian, the first live action TV show, comes out, and it's awesome. And they just released the Jedi Fallen Order video game last week, and so far I'm loving it. I haven't finished it. It's quite a long campaign, so I don't want to give my thoughts for the whole scope of the story until I've seen it all. But what I've seen, I've gotten pretty far. What I've seen, it's pretty awesome. Jedi Fallen Order, at least the story-wise, you know. Gameplay's fine. I do wish there was a multiplayer, but the story so far has been really cool. It's a great addition to the Star Wars canon overall. But I digress. This isn't about the video games. This isn't about Rise of Skywalker. It's about this show. Yeah. I guess I probably should be cutting this out now. Feel like my thoughts were a little scattered in this episode. Probably could have done better. Oh well. What are your thoughts about the episode? Did you watch it? Did you love it? Did you catch the details that I caught? Are there other details that I missed? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, I would appreciate your likes and subscribe, please, so you can be up to date whenever I'm posting any of my thoughts and ideas about movies and Star Wars in particular. And I guess I'll leave you with one question about The Mandalorian. When is he going to get his signet? And what is going to be his signet? I'm kind of wondering, this is not something I know about Mandalorians, but do they always have like animals as their signets? Is that like a requirement? Could it be a little Yoda symbol? Maybe he has a little tiny head with great big ears, and that's his signet. But yeah, I speculate that he will have a signet before the end of the season. But who knows? What will it be? Let me know. I have been Eric Rooms, the Film Score Fanatic. I hope you've enjoyed, and come back next week for more Mandalorian talk, and check back on my channel for other film and television reviews as they come out. So I guess we'll leave it at that, and I have spoken.